Okay, Sunday morning. I went to a gun show yesterday, so now it's time for a gun show and panic buying report. Alright, in my state, North Carolina, I know in other states, guys have told me they'd open up gun shows and everything's been back to normal for a while. Um, with us here, depending on where you live, and basically most of the major cities are where you have liberal governments, mayors, and this and that. In Greensboro, they have done something. The mayor tried canceling the gun show and couldn't, but ended up having to go and buy the rights or something. And, using the taxpayers' money, did something to where they could eliminate anybody having a gun show in the city limits of Greensboro. Okay, this was done towards the end of last year. And of course now that the reason they did this is so we don't have no drunken hooligans running around just selling guns. The murder rate has spiked pretty good. Violent crime and murdering has gone up to record levels since the beginning of this year. So job well done. But the rest of the state, it's kind of funny. It goes by locales, okay, because the governor said that the way he did it is he released to each county how to do it. And there was one promoter, he used to go to Winston-Salem every other month, and I believe all their shows have been canceled, okay, or at least the last time I checked. I haven't checked recently. I've kind of given up. So I know that Raleigh has brought him back to State Fairgrounds, and there's 2 or 3 shows that go there. I haven't gone to one because it's like a 2.5-hour drive. They had them down towards Charlotte and then Fayetteville, by the home of Fort Bragg there, the home of the 82nd Airborne. They opened that down there. But another thing, even though these venues are open, there's another underlying political thing where the fire marshal won't allow them to keep gunpowder or primers out on display. So all the vendors that used to come and sell all this reloading shit and the reason I used to drive down there, even if I couldn't find anything in terms of guns that I wanted to buy, I would always stop by the reloading thing and pick up a few odds and ends, without having to pay the hazmat fee or weight and all this other stuff. Well, that's gone. So the whole point of me taking a 2-hour plus drive down there is gone. So I don't go to them. Flea markets, I don't know, I went out there, it's the first time I went out there. That's outdoors, that's rough, but there were, it's kind of hit or miss. It's them people that go there every weekend, and he said, oh, they had an M1 Garand, and they had this and this and that. Some interesting stuff does show up every now and again. But now they're worried if they do pass this background check law, that they will be coming out there and entrapping you for selling anything, an old single barrel shotgun without a background check. They're gonna put this out of business. So it's kind of precarious. But anyway, the only show we get is there's a guy that runs gun shows, and he runs them just about every weekend, and he covers the whole state. The only thing about his show is they're small. All the places he rents, the venues are small. It's about a 3-aisle show. So, I don't know how many vendors you could say, he's got maybe 100 vendors instead of 800 or something like the larger ones. They're small venues, okay? Actually, one aisle was taken up by 2 vendors, all right? And on this show also, he had one guy, had the one whole wall covered with ammo. So, this is the show I went to, small venue show. It's out in the county. It's not inside the city limits of Greensboro because they tried shutting this down. And come to find out, legally they can't because they're not inside the city limits. They're on the very outskirts of the city, in the county, so they can't do it. So I went to this show about 3 months ago, and I mean, it was a 3-ring circus. It was a zoo. Everyone slammed into the little area in the Moose Lodge, and the vendors are in there, and it was just people coming out, when I got there, with cases of ammo and running off to the car. And then, people do go there and buy guns. You see people even with a gun in a box or something. But basically, they all come flying in there, grabbed ammo, and ran. And I also, yesterday, was talking to another person I know who lives here locally, that's a collector, and he goes to the gun shows. He drove down, Salisbury, he drove down to Charlotte and that. And he told me that he's noticing when he goes to these shows, he goes, it used to be they had ammunition, and he goes, you couldn't get near the table. And then people, whatever was there, whatever the price was gone instantly. And I kind of noticed that when I went to this last show, is the guy selling these 500 round packs, Winchester 9mm, that's what all these people were wandering out with. If he had, I don't know how much he had, but by the time I got in there 2 hours after the show opened, it was gone. I didn't see any of it. So how much he had now, I have no idea, but it sold fairly rapidly. So when I went to the show this time, again, it was a wait, and part of this is this COVID thing. You can only have so many people, which is limited from the capacity, so many people in. So the reason we were waiting in line is as the people went in, and fortunately, this is a small venue. So in 10-15 minutes, there's a whole group of people just leaving. They got what they wanted. So, and there was a guy who had to sit there, and what he did is he counted the ones leaving, and he said, okay, let 3 in, let 4 in. And there's somebody that had to sit there that whole time and do that, count. But it wasn't bad. I had to wait about, I'd say 15 minutes or so outside, 15, 20 minutes. I got in. And again, like I said, small venue. They had an assortment of shit. They had people selling jewelry, the cheap knives. They had a little food vendor set up. And then you go in there, and they did have one person rented a whole slew of tables, covered one whole section of wall. And all it was ammunition, the whole way down. And there were several other people had 5.56, 9mm, all the stuff you wanted. And I heard somebody mumbling something, a dollar a round. And this is not at giveaway prices. This dollar a round for 9mm or something. I just walked by the table. I didn't even look. I didn't even look at the prices. But the one thing I didn't see is I didn't see people running away with, I seen people buying some, but nobody with cases toting off and flying out of there. That kind of backed off. And the individual I talked to told me that. He said, when I went to these other gun shows, in the southern part of the state, there was a couple of them over the past few months. He said, I noticed that people aren't crowding the ammunition tables or buying the shit out of everything, in a panic. So it appears the rush on buying is starting to back off, okay? Because when I was in there, I seen there was a lot of ammunition on the table. The show was running for a good 3 hours or so. And like my friend said, you didn't see people just piled on there where you couldn't even get to the table to see what was there. So it appears that this nonsense is starting to taper off from the gun shows. Another indicator I get is I look at my emails, and when I start getting a lot of emails from all these major online sellers or stores, AIM Surplus, I forget, there's several of them, and they'll send me an email, hey, we got ammo in stock. Most of it's foreign ammo. It's either the steel-cased Wolf or some other stuff, surplus ammo, and all the military calibers or the high-volume stuff. I think even Royal Tigers even got 9mm ammo. They got a couple pallets of the stuff they're trying to sell. And if you buy you buy in large quantities, it comes out to 68 cents a round, but I don't know what the hell he's going to charge in shipping for 2,000 rounds. So it's starting to catch up, and that's what, see, everyone doesn't realize. And yes, this one lasted longer, it'll be a year or so, but it catches up. I mean, people just, the reason they do it is just this panic, like this fear and this, and they'll spend any amount. I mean, you know, when that one guy went and bought steel case 223 ammo, and he paid 100 something for it, whatever it was, and he walked out in the parking lot and the guy offered him $300, and he just sold it, you know. I mean, that's insanity, okay? There is no war. I haven't heard of anyone being attacked lately. There's been some mass shootings, which now you're going to see that, and they're going to try to pass more laws, but the violence in that led up to the elections, I believe, is tapered off. I at least, of course, I don't watch the news either. I don't know. But I haven't heard of any protests or any looting or burning around locally here. So I have no idea. You know, other areas I know up in, I think Oregon or something, they still have all kinds of weird stuff. Depends where you are. But so the reason and the fear is kind of backing off. The COVID thing is kind of backing off. But I'm afraid to say gun shows for me, the reason I used to go to them, like I said, I could pick up stuff, and just to see the old dealers and vendors and guys that were collectors, or guys that, you know, you have people that deal with sporting guns, you have people that deal with surplus, you have people that deal with all the old antique guns, okay, and swords and stuff like that. You know, just to go and see them and see what's there, those are gone. And the days of people just coming in, holding a gun, some odd gun or old gun, and trying to sell it, you know, and you used to be able just to approach the person and try to make an offer or something or see what he had. I mean, that was half the fun of going to the gun show, is the people wandering around with all these odd firearms they're trying to sell. Those days are gone. It's just basically, I don't think I've seen anyone carrying a gun to this show. Basically, it's they all run in there to buy ammo, and there were vendors with a lot of firearms, and the firearms people were looking at were all defensive guns, be it either a handgun, a shotgun, you know, you see like ARs, pump shotguns, and all these range of handguns from expensive to basically your basic Tauruses, Bursas, and all that, you know, the $200-300 line of weapons. You know, we had two large surplus dealers that had some stuff, and that was about it. So there were some surplus handguns and some old military rifles. But even my buddy that kind of specializes in that, he had a lot of new firearms. He is a, you know, licensed dealer. But he had, where he used to have a table cover with all these old pistols and stuff, you know, and different variations. He had a whole big section of all modern stuff that he's got. Okay, modern handguns. And he had shotguns and all that other stuff. Because I think all his SKSs and all that other stuff was sold right the hell out. And he had a lot of brand new stuff. Where usually, you know, surplus dealers, all the stuff they got used anyway. When they go buy these collections from the States and that, you know, it's all used material. Even if it's still in the box and everything, never been fired, it's still a used gun. But he actually had new stuff. And he had ammo. He had 5.56. He had a couple giant cases of the stuff up there, and I didn't even look, but he had a bunch of ammo. He had some old, he had cans of it, lower amounts of the surplus stuff, but he had the cases of the 5.56 prominently displayed. and there wasn't a rush of people ripping them away. See, now this is where you get into danger. I made this mistake. That's why I'm done with it. That's why I go with the black powder and that, and just fool with that till this passes. Because if you make the mistake to purchase something at a slightly higher price, then 6 months from now, when it all tapers off and nobody can sell anything and everyone just stops buying, and these factories are running full blast, and you're going to get this slam where they're not selling their material. The next thing you know, they're going to have to back off in the factory, cut the hours, lay off the extra help, and they're going to have warehouses full of shit where they start losing money every day because their product is sitting still. Okay, we're going to come to this point. And this is one of the reasons I don't get really worked up over this or involved. Yes, it's a pain in the ass if I want to try a new load or go get some primers or do something different. I can't get it, or it's at 10 times the normal price. Okay, yes, it's an inconvenience. That's why I always have something like I get into the black powder stuff. It totally takes me out of this vicious circle of insanity, and I just go off on another venue. I still shoot. I still go outside and enjoy myself. But I'm not aggravating myself or getting caught to where you know, a lot of these dealers. Actually, the one guy who was telling me they thought there was going to be a magazine ban, and everybody bought them 50-round drums and that. They were buying them all wholesale and sitting on them, and they didn't sell. So now you bought at a high price, you tied up a bunch of money in this inventory that nobody friggin' wants, and you know, because they're figuring if they ban them, they will double in value instantly. Okay, and that's what it is. It's speculative nonsense. Okay, but I've seen it all the time, and now it looks like we're on the downhill slide to all of this. Okay, there were a lot of guns there. There were people buying firearms. Don't get me wrong, but not at the level to where, of course, the show, I think the prices are a bit steep. I looked at some used handguns and that. The prices are high on everything, be it new guns, be it older used guns like I like, you know, these 40, 50-year-old little pistols or something. That one guy must have been a pawn shop. He had some 22s, you know, them Bracos or whatever, the cheap little pocket guns, and they were beat up, you know, and he had a pretty good price on them. So, you know, there were no bargains there. Okay, put it to you that way. There were no cut rate bargains. So that's the way it looks, but it looks like we're going to be coming out of this. We're going to be coming out of the panic buying. From what I've heard from other people, from what I've seen from the advertisements, it looks like we're starting to get caught up to where people are not going to pay these dollar a round prices. Okay, and once people stop buying, and once the dealers and the local people stop buying, and then once it starts getting full up in the warehouse, you're going to see the price come down. Not back to the levels that it was, but it will come down. See, that's why, in a way, a lot of these chain stores, you know, you guys go back to the conspiracy there, where they have the policy where you got to line up, they let one person in at a time and limit you to 3, and they only put so much out. It could be they're dividing up what they get, especially the chain stores. In other words, the one major headquarters orders this and they separate it throughout the country. Makes sense. But when they do this limiting and restricting, that's when it drives people to where they start getting crazy. Okay, and the fault lies in how people react to this. Okay, that's the problem. Nobody's thinking, everyone's in a dead panic, and that's where insanity prevails. Okay, and that's where people can take advantage of you and get you to pay higher prices for stuff. And, you know, it's sad, but that's the way it goes. Fortunately, I believe we're starting to get out of this. Give it a few more months, and you'll see that when people stop buying. It might take 6, 7 months for it to start readjusting. Uh, but as long as there's no scare or no other crisis, incident, put it there, an incident that sparks fear and panic. But I think the way it's boiled down to after this last, I think everybody in America that wants a gun has gotten one. And if you haven't, well, then they're going to be the next batch to rush out and get them. And I believe everybody is, through this panicking and that, has gotten some sort of ammunition for the gun. So we're going to see it start to taper off. But, as far as I'm concerned, gun shows are not going to be something I travel to all the time. I know my friend there, he does, because he's a collector. And what he does is you go to the show, you wander around to see, you might get lucky and find something A you're looking for, and B it's at a reasonable price. You never know, okay? But unfortunately, that ain't happening no more. The shows are too small, and whoever shows up there, the prices, I was looking at some of the smaller vendors, prices they got on stuff are astronomical. And a gun I bought, I paid a little too much for it, I believe, but yeah, it's hard to find. That was more or less, that's a personal choice. That's not something I bought for an investment, or it's something I bought because I wanted it. And it was convenient, it was there, and if I paid a little extra for it, well, it saves me the hassle of searching, looking, and going through all this other crap to try to get something. So, that's how it looks. Things are starting to get better. So, everybody relax, give it some more time, and I think we'll see the situation start to clear up and start to head back somewhere towards normal once again.